Before you ask, vintage Swiss cycling jersey. Look it up. If you saw our recent trend report, you know we called out titanium as the case material of the year for 2024 that would likely spill over into 2025. There are many brands, including Rolex, who could take advantage of this. Purple has been the unexpected dial color of the year, and we can reasonably assume that that will morph into a more wearable shade of burgundy in the new year, or even a full-on red wave. A burgundy dial Cartier Santos, for example, could be cool. One thing you gotta hope we'll see is an end to the arms race for the thinnest watch in the world. It feels like the brands are doing this only for themselves and only for the sake of bragging rights, given that the average watch lover isn't super interested in this kind of science project. Now, one thing we expect to see in general, for better or for worse, is more brands paying attention to what's happening on social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube. Record labels in the music industry have shifted hard in this direction and basically won't sign an artist if they're not already popular online. The old Swiss brands are notoriously slow moving, but these platforms could be vital for audience feedback, like a focus group, but with millions of people as data points. Brands should use these platforms as tools for measuring public response to new releases or for finding popular vintage watches for potential revivals. We'll talk about that in more depth when we get to Cartier. We have some anniversaries coming up in 2025, and we'll cover them each as we go brand by brand. These are important because, again, old Swiss companies move at a glacial pace, and their new releases are often years in the making. So, anniversaries provide concrete milestones to plan for in advance, and it makes the prediction business a little bit easier. With that point in mind, let's talk Tudor. They have the potential to do something really cool, and the timing is right. But first, let's discuss the more likely scenario. The Black Bay line has become a major focus for the brand, with various variations popping up in the last few years. Now, I wouldn't be too surprised to see an entirely new Black Bay spinoff emerge in 2025, but it's all but guaranteed that we'll see new dials and cases for their existing models. There's only one Black Bay in ceramic, and if they already have the cases in production, why not throw in a different dial color or two? It would feel exciting and surprising, but would be easy to achieve from a manufacturing perspective. Tudor has a habit of pulling inspiration from Rolex's back catalog when it comes to colors. We certainly see this with their GMT lineup, so from a betting perspective, any new color combos we see from Tudor might not be entirely new when you zoom out. Likewise, there's a Black Bay Chrono in pink, so surely the brand could include more mainstream colors like black or green for an easy win. Speaking of chronographs, the big block chrono is always an option for a revival, but it's unlikely because they already have multiple other chronographs in their lineup. Still, the 50th anniversary for the big block chrono is coming up in 2026, so that could be something to keep an eye on in the future. One newish chronograph that we could see, in addition to new colors for the Black Bay Chrono, would be a new Tudor Pelagos chronograph in titanium. Tudor already has two Pelagos chronos in carbon cases. They could make a titanium version without much trouble, and because titanium has been the material of choice for the Pelagos, a titanium chronograph would fit right in. Now for the most daring possibility, and remember, Tudor is born to dare. 2025 would be the 10-year anniversary of the Tudor North Flag. It was not a particularly popular watch 10 years ago, but there's potential for Tudor to not re-release, but perhaps reinvent this integrated bracelet sport watch. The best improvements would be a slimmer case and a modified dial. One direction they could go with the dial would be make it more cohesive with the Black Bay and Pelagos collections by adding a snowflake hour hand. Another direction they could go would be to take the original inspiration for the North Flag, the Tudor Ranger 2, and make it an addition to the Ranger line, which currently only includes one watch. That way, you can keep the pointed hour hand and the airbit numerals at 6 and 12 while massaging some of the more divisive elements. Also, the North Flag would need to be slimmed down from 13.3 to say 11 or 12, but that seems easy enough to accomplish. Again, the new North Flag is more of a wish than a prediction, but could be cool. On the subject of titanium watches, one brand that could use this trend to their advantage is Rolex. Fans have long asked for a titanium Submariner, but that seems unlikely since the debut of the titanium Yachtmaster. There's one surprise watch that would be a great fit for titanium, but first, here's what makes more practical sense. The yellow gold brick known as the Deep Sea created a lot of conversation in 2024. It's 44 millimeters wide by 17.7 millimeters thick and weighs 320 grams, which is more than 11 ounces. It's almost entirely constructed of solid gold, except for a case back in titanium. Of all the watches Rolex could release in lightweight titanium, this one seems to be the most desperate case. That's what should happen, but the more fun scenario is what could happen. We're talking about a newly reimagined Rolex Milgauss in grade 5 titanium. The Milgauss was only discontinued in 2023, so this is definitely a reach. However, while it's rare for Rolex to release a new watch, it's also rare for them to permanently delete a model, at least in the modern era of the company. Will it happen in 2025? There's maybe a 2% chance of that happening, but it's something to look forward to in the future. And the Milgauss, whether it comes back in a vintage styling or a more modern treatment, would make collectors excited. Otherwise, for Rolex, it feels too soon to release another bezel variation for the GMT, although we could see them create new dials for the Datejust or the Oyster Perpetual as an easy move. As the brand moves decisively into the luxury stratosphere, it's highly likely we'll see precious metal and maybe even some gem set versions of existing models like the GMT and the Daytona. While Rolex has favored a slow and steady evolution of their model lineup, Omega has been more willing to launch new models, discontinue old models, and morph existing watches into new territory. Just look to the evolution of the Seamaster for evidence. They have so much to pull from in their archives, and while it could be cool to see the Flightmaster return, for example, it's more likely they'll make surface-level adjustments to existing watches. After all, what did 2024 bring us? We got a white dial Speedmaster and new Seamaster 300Ms in silver and black. It's a way to get a lot of attention for doing relatively little. Both releases were teased beforehand by brand ambassador Daniel Craig. By the way, I recently found out he's very particular about how his name is pronounced. It's Daniel Craig, not Daniel Craig. So we can expect to see more of this in 2025, both the color adjustments and the marketing strategy. It's worth noting that 2025 is the 20th anniversary of the Planet Ocean, and there's a cool direction they could take this in. There are already a lot of variations on the Planet Ocean, with 58 in total currently on the Omega site. We could expect to see more dial variations at the minimum, but what I'd love to see is a new proprietary alloy for the case material. They've already developed Moonshine Gold, Sedna Gold, and Omega Steel. Where I think there's potential is to challenge IWC with Omega's own version of Ceratanium. Omega has Planet Oceans in ceramic and titanium already, and the 20th anniversary could be a suitable occasion to show off their powers of alchemy in ways that feels not entirely new, but progressive in terms of trends and technology. Speaking of anniversaries, let's talk about Cartier. Cartier seems to operate in the same way that Oreo does, which is to say, they get freaky for the sake of getting freaky. We saw this most vividly with their Cartier Santos Rewind, which displays time in reverse. 2026 will be the 25th anniversary of the Cartier Roadster, but before that, we have the 40th anniversary of the Cartier Pasha in 2025. The Pasha is a hit or miss watch depending on the person, and it's safe to say that it's more miss than hit for the general public. Still, this would be a prime time to release a special anniversary edition. I know I'm not the only person hoping for the return of the Pasha with the protective grille. Realistically, the brand has found success by miniaturizing various models like the Panthère, the Benoit, and the Classic Tank. We could certainly see them squeeze this lemon a little more in the new year, much to the delight of Cartier fangirls on social media. Speaking of which, Cartier has benefited from social media more than any other brand over the last few years, as people clamor to unearth niche shapes from the brand's archives and watch them blow up online and blow up in price on the secondary market. Whether you love him or you hate him, Mike Nouveau has been a driving force behind this, and the brand could easily relaunch watches that have already proven to be hits online. We're talking about watches like the Cristallor, the Ceinture, or the Cousin. If the enthusiasm and the financial interest is already there for the vintage models, it only made sense that the brand would want to strike while the iron is hot and transfer that attention to their current lineup. The other brand that could benefit from the same strategy is Audemars Piguet. Now we absolutely know that we'll be seeing more Royal Oak variations in 2025. That watch isn't going anywhere. Just to throw it out there, AP could totally make a Royal Oak in titanium. Chances are they won't, but it could be a hit. Now for the Cartier connection. By that, I mean AP has a lot of funky vintage watches in their archives that they could use to expand their remaster project. They first did this with the chronograph in 2020. Fast forward to 2024, and we see the Remaster 2 make its debut. Who knows what form it will take, but it's logical to assume they'll continue this program in 2025 or soon after. They could do it for diversification. They could do it to convince customers that buying a remaster will get them a Royal Oak sooner. They haven't had the greatest success launching new models like the Code 1159, although that is getting better. So maybe they do what so many other brands do and dig through the archives for some non-Genta alternatives. I want to end on a positive note, but we're talking about Patek. Criticizing Patek's recent releases has, in less than a year, already become a bit cliche. Some of their decisions, like the Cubitus, like those denim straps, have been so off-putting that we went from punching up to punching down on a brand that seems to have lost their way. Given this recent trajectory, we can expect to see more unpleasant surprises in 2025. This will likely not take the form of entirely new watches. After all, the Cubitus was the first new collection in the last 25 years. To be fair, they do still make really good watches, especially really good complicated watches that don't generate as much discussion or sensational opinion pieces. Realistically, Patek will have somewhat of a quiet year and reinterpret their existing watches in new dial colors and case materials. Either that, or they throw a Hail Mary for the 40th anniversary of the 3940 and do a special edition perpetual calendar. But beggars can't be choosers, and God knows even begging will not get me a Patek Philippe.